my home city, defeated and humiliated. My father, Hamilcar, brave yet helpless, forced to run away. I swore to bring war to Rome. My time for revenge has come. I will cross the rivers. I will climb the highest mountains. I will take your cities with diplomacy or treason. I will fight you in the fields, Rome. You will remember my name. I am Hannibal.
Hi, my name is Ernest, and I'm going to show you how to play Hannibal, Rome vs. Carthage, by Simonitch, published by Phalanx. In a two-player game of Hannibal, Rome will compete with Carthage over the hegemony of Middle Earth. Did I just say Middle Earth? I meant the Middle Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. Let's start with a look at the board. We can see the western part of the Mediterranean Sea surrounded by land. It's easy to identify several regions, each of them marked with a distinct colour, grouping several provinces. Italia is composed of 7 provinces. Each of Iberia and Africa have 4. There are 2 provinces in Sicilia, while Sardinia, paired with Corsica, form a distinct region with just 1 province. Control of these 18 politically significant provinces is crucial for winning the game. Each politically significant province has a corresponding space on the province control display, which helps to see at a glance how many and which provinces are controlled by each player. There are some individual provinces that do not belong to any region: Liguria, Massilia, Gallia, as well as the Balearic Islands. Mauritania is not playable in a classical game of Hannibal. So how do you control a province? There are several round and square spaces in each province. Those are cities and walled cities. Some provinces may have as many as 7, or just 1 city, like the province of Syracuse, Carthago, or Latium, which have only 1 walled city each. You control a province if you control the majority of its spaces. Control is denoted by a round political control marker placed on its Roman or Punic side. The same markers are shown in the center of some of the cities, which show how to set up the game. The oval markings show placement of tribes, most of which are independent, but some are allied with Carthage and count towards her province control. So, if at any moment in the game you control the majority of spaces in a province, you place your round marker in the corresponding box on the display. If Rome controls the majority of the provinces shown on the display at the end of the 9th game turn, they win. Otherwise, Carthage wins. Carthage also wins if it is in control of all provinces in Italia other than Latium. If you lose control of your capital, you lose the game. The same goes for being unable to remove a political control marker if necessary. Now let's have a look at the playing pieces in the game. The only mobile pieces in the game are the generals, each having a card and a pawn, in our case a wooden stand. But your game may have a cardboard stand, a plastic or metal mini, or just a cardboard counter. Roman generals in play could either be of a higher rank, consul, or a lower, proconsul. Each general has 2 ratings, his strategy rating in the circle and his battle rating in the square. A general with any number of combat units is called an army. An army may also contain any number of friendly generals. A general may lead up to 10 combat units, which are represented by round counters with a number. Those units are interchangeable and illustrations on them are just for decoration. What counts is the number on them. The only units which are different are those with the elephant. These units come in denominations of 1 and may only be introduced into the game by events. There are other additional markers like Carthaginian siege train and siege markers, which will be introduced later. Hannibal is a card-driven game, which means most of the game actions are driven by cards. For a classical game of Hannibal, you need cards 1 to 64 from the strategy deck. Let's have a look at the strategy cards. The card's event can be played by the player whose colour is shown in the top left circle. If it has 2 colours, either player may trigger the event. Events are important because they take precedence over the rules. The number of cards' operation points is shown in the same circle. Those can be used in two ways. First, to either place political control markers in any round spaces which don't have a marker yet, or to flip enemy markers in a round city space, but that's only if you have a combat unit in that space. It costs 1 operation point to place or flip a marker, and you may do any or both. For example, you can place markers in an empty space and flip 1 enemy marker in a space with your combat unit, but remember, any unused points are lost. You may alternatively use a card with 3 operation points to place 1 combat unit with any of your generals. The icon here serves as a reminder. A card can also be played to activate 1 and only 1 general. In this case, the strategy rating of the general that is shown in the circle must not exceed the value of the used card. So a card with 2 operation points may be used to activate a general with a strategy rating of 1 or 2, but not 3. To summarize, when you play a strategy card, you may use it to play an event, activate a general, or place a combat unit. You may also discard a card, but it's always better to place a political marker if you've got nothing else to do. Now let's explain the activation of generals. An activated general may move around the board, taking with him any amount of generals and up to 10 combat units. Those units and generals can be dropped and collected or even transferred between generals while the general is active or moving. That's how you'd bring your combat units to the enemy-controlled cities which you would want to capture. A general without combat units may not enter a space with enemy combat units. However, if it were an army, the same action would lead to a battle. Finally, a general who ends the activation in the enemy-walled city or tribal space may try to conquer them. An activated general may move up to 4 spaces, provided the move is made entirely on roads. The same goes for any combat unit. While it can be moved by more than 1 general, the total distance it may move is 4 spaces. Remember when we said the events take precedence over the rules? Here's an example of how this works. The Forced March card allows a 6-space movement. Let's go back to movement cost. Moving across a strait costs 2 movement points, and so does marching via a mountain pass. But in this case, you must roll for attrition. Roll a classic die and find the roll result in the first column of the table. Find the number of moving combat units in the top row and cross-reference. The resulting number tells you how many combat units must be removed from your army. If the line shows an elephant unit, you must take it as your first loss if present with your moved general. There is yet another type of movement which you need to know about: naval movement. When the Second Punic War started, Rome enjoyed supremacy at sea and had relative freedom of sea travel. That's why moving the Romans overseas is quite easy. If a general is activated with a card marked with this ship icon, he may transport up to 5 combat units between 2 ports. These ports don't need to belong to Rome. However, if the general moves with a campaign card showing 2 ships, he may transport up to 10 combat units. Only 1 naval movement can be made per card play. Naval movement consumes 3 out of a general's movement allowance of 4. That means a general may move 1 space and still sail, or sail and then move 1 space. This comes handy during the game. Carthaginian naval movement is not as straightforward. It requires a little planning and may still be risky. That's because Carthage lost its naval capabilities in the earlier war, covered in another game in the series. Every time a Carthaginian general travels between 2 ports, check the symbols on the ship icon shown by the port's name on the map. You will see blue dots and red diamonds. As Carthage, you want to have more dots than diamonds at the end of the naval movement procedure. Check the naval movement table and count the dots and diamond rewards for meeting the various listed conditions. For beginners, tallying the result may be easier with political control markers. Then, roll a die and add the result to your total. Compare the numbers of accumulated dots and diamonds to find out the result in this small table. It seems complex, but once you go through the procedure a couple of times, you will do this on the fly. There is an important concept you need to learn now. That's reaction. Hannibal is a highly interactive game, and you need to pay attention to the other player's actions. For example, you may want to play a reaction card and immediately introduce its effect, like this one. Or, in reaction, your general may attempt to intercept an enemy general who just moved into an adjacent space. if that space does not already contain enemy combat units. In order to succeed with an interception, roll a classic die. If the result does not exceed the intercepting general's battle rating, place your general in the interception space. The moving general now has an option to back up one space and move back to the last entered space, but must end its move then. The army which uses this option may need to roll again for attrition and naval movement. That's if it had to do it while moving forward. If this option is not used, a battle starts with the intercepting general being a defender. It's basically considered the intercepting force has arrived into the space before the enemy army moved in. Multiple interception attempts are possible and are conducted in any order, but only one may start in any one space. Another reaction available to your general is to avoid battle. This can be attempted when an enemy general moves into a space with your general. Again, in order to succeed, your classic die roll must not exceed the avoiding general's battle rating. If that is achieved, move your general into any adjacent space void of enemy units, control markers, and unfriendly tribes. However, an army may never intercept, avoid battle, withdraw, or retreat across a pass or strait. If an army, which has 5 or more units, moves into a space with a lone unit, that unit is simply overrun and eliminated. The army may continue moving. However, units may hide inside their friendly walled city if this is where the battle is taking place. The number on the walled city counter shows how many units may do so. Otherwise, an army arriving in a space with enemy combat units triggers a battle. Any units outside the city walls will participate in that battle, but can be joined by those inside. For example, both sides prepare for battle in the following sequence. Carthage must roll for command change if attacking a Roman army that contains both consuls, and may choose to roll if attacked by such an army. If the command change roll is 1 to 3, there is no change. If the die roll is 4 to 6, the commander and subordinate consuls exchange positions. Then, starting with the attacker, players may play any counter events, those marked with crossed swords. Be aware, this is not an action and will reduce your hand. Once the results are introduced, each player will get up to 20 battle cards. You get 1 card for each of your combat units in the battle. Plus, if you have a general in a battle, add a number of cards equal to his battle rating, and 1 for each of his supporting allies, which corresponds to the number of provinces you control in the region where the battle takes place. That's 1 battle card per 1 ally, but check the political display to see that both provinces of Numidia give 2 battle cards. The maximum amount of allies Rome can get while in Italia is 2. Rome receives 2 extra battle cards if the battle takes place in Latium, even if no general is present. You will also receive an extra battle card for a successful interception, or if the space contains a friendly tribe. But you will reduce your draw if you failed to avoid battle. Once you know how many combat cards you will draw, the Carthaginian player may declare the elephant charge. The elephant charge reduces the Roman hand by the number of elephant units they have in the battle, provided the roll is higher than the battle rating of the Roman commanding general. If 1 is rolled, the Carthaginian battle card hand is reduced by 1. Let's summarize. Your hand size will depend on number of units, general's battle rating, number of allies, reaction rewards and penalties, elephant charge result, and counter events. Now shuffle the battle card deck and deal the cards. Battles are played in rounds. In each round, the attacker plays 1 of the battle cards. The defender must match it with exactly the same card. Instead of playing a card, the attacker may choose to disengage, rolling no more than their commanding general's battle rating. A successful disengage allows the attacker to withdraw to an adjacent space, which ends the battle. The defender, however, may attempt to cancel this by rolling no more than their commanding general's battle rating. If the attempt to disengage is unsuccessful, the defender may become the attacker at their option. After each round, the defender may counterattack and become the attacker, rolling no more than their commanding general's battle rating. The defender would automatically become an attacker after matching a double envelopment card. The attacker wins the battle if the defender does not match a card. The defender wins if the attacker has no card to play. Once the battle is over, roll on the attrition table and find the row. Find the number of played rounds in the top row. Number of played rounds equals to number of cards played by the winner. Find out the number of combat units lost by each side by cross-reference. Then, the winner rolls the retreat die. The small one if the losing army had less than 5 combat units, and the large if it had 5 or more units. Consult the die result with the last played battle card, the one that decided the battle, and remove the required number of losers' combat units. Then, the loser must retreat all their generals and units. The retreating force, or part of it, may retreat into a controlled walled city in the same space up to the allowed limit. The rest of the defeated army is eliminated if it landed into the battle space in the same round. In other cases, the remainder of the defeated army must retreat up to 4 spaces to a space which doesn't contain more enemy units than friendly units, or be eliminated if such retreat cannot be made. The attacker must always retreat first into the space from which they entered the battle. The retreating defender may not enter that space at any time during the retreat. Any friendly units on the path of retreat which do not outnumber the retreating force will join the retreat, even if that would bring it to more than 10 units. Each enemy marker or non-friendly tribe on the path of retreat will remove 1 retreating unit. A retreat should be made to the closest possible space unless another path of retreat would result in less losses. The loser must remove 1 of their round control markers for each 2 combat units lost in the battle, or lose the game. Once per card play, an army of at least 3 combat units ending the move on an enemy walled city may conduct 1 siege attempt, or a subjugation attempt if ending the move on a non-friendly tribe. In both cases, consult the table to select the correct die and find out the result. A walled city is only considered under a siege if marked with at least 1 siege point. Once 3 points are accumulated, flip the walled city to show the new owner or remove the tribe permanently and replace it with a round controlled marker. An inactive army or smaller than 3 units may only maintain the siege, so the table reminds you about that requirement. Winter arrives at the end of turn, once all of the strategy cards have been used. All combat units on enemy political markers or non-friendly tribes must suffer attrition. Find the number of units in the affected space in the top row, roll a die and find out how many units are removed. Then, all the political markers which are isolated and don't have a friendly unit in the space are removed. They are isolated if they cannot plot a path across friendly political markers or empty spaces to a friendly combat unit or walled city. Such a path may not cross a mountain pass, but may involve ports. The Roman player goes first, followed by the Carthaginian player. Compare the number of politically significant provinces controlled by each player. Whichever player has the lower count must remove a number of their round markers equal to the difference. If that's not possible, the player loses the game. Otherwise, advance the game to the next turn, at the start of which Carthage and then Rome would receive reinforcements and strategy cards. These procedures are described in the rulebook, and it's best to just follow them so we can keep this video reasonably short. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please let me know in the comments. This was my first one, so I'd like to know if you'd wish to see more of my how to plays.